ideas are exciting. They give you a rush, a spark, a reason to hyper focus and stay up way too late on something that could be game changing for your business. But if every idea pulls you in a different direction, then your business is going to look like a half-assed, crazy, chaotic Pinterest board. Just a bunch of unfinished projects with no real purpose or strategy behind it. So, as business owners, we have to find a way to balance that shiny object syndrome and just that feel to want to go do something new or check out this trend or check out this new software. We've got to balance that shiny object syndrome with just the boring routine stuff that helps our business actually scale. So it's this fight between staying focused and being profitably productive without killing your creativity, without making your business too mundane and boring where you don't even like what you do anymore. This came up a lot in a recent conversation with some of my mastermind members. So I run Growth and Action Partners where we talk about challenges and goals and ideas and really try to find clarity and strategy around the next steps to go execute and kick ass at that new strategy and goal. One of the things I asked was, what's your superpower and what's your kryptonite in business? And a lot of the weaknesses that we heard were around staying focused, not chasing that shiny object, being able to not always go after that new thing and not be too distracted with a new idea, and just being focused on what works in the business. So, for those of us that maybe aren't ADHD or you don't fall into those visionary tendencies of finding those shiny objects, that is a superpower for you. Just the ability to be focused and really create routine and structure and consistency in your business. Major superpower, because a lot of times the boring, simple stuff is what works in business, and that's what allows you to scale. I'm always talking about how can we simplify, how can you create that structure, and it's really hard to keep things simple when you want to go chase the shiny objects. So really, how can you avoid that boredom feeling? How can you still have exciting things in your business while still scaling in a way that you're not going to lose your sanity? The reason why we chase new ideas in business is because repetition bores us. We are paying way too close attention to what our competitors are doing and want to hop on those trends instead of realizing what works best for us. There's a new high when you start a project. I know for me, I love to start new things. I love planning, especially like when I plan our trips for our family. I geek out over planning. And what trains are we going to take? What hotels are we going to stay at? When are we going to maybe spend a little bit less in a hotel? And when are we going to go full out resort life? I love the planning stage of a trip. For me, that makes a trip a little bit more exciting. So there's a high when you start new projects. Kind of like when you start dating a new person, right? That puppy love is different than that 10-year marriage love. And where this can all go south is when there's no strategy around new ideas. And then you have way too many ideas that spread you out too thin in business, and there is no structure and there's no consistency to where you're spending your time and how you're managing your productivity. And that can lead to kind of a defeating feeling because you're likely not going to get the best results, whether it's a new shiny object syndrome around lead gen or your marketing strategy, or it's figuring out this new system and like transferring everything from this project management or CRM system to something new. If you're always distracted by these new ideas, you're most likely not going to get the best results. You're not going to see the inbound leads or the engagement that you want by constantly changing your strategy on lead gen. You're not going to see maybe the optimization and fully utilize all the automations and other things that can really help with your productivity when you are jumping to a new system all the time. So those underwhelming results will lead to that defeated feeling in business and can lead to some self-doubt that then leaks into your other strategic decision making. So the way to fight this is to really understand what your core business is, what works for you, and go back to the basics, the 80-20 rule. Spend 80% of your time working on the things that you know work, the things that you know make you money in business that are still enjoyable. If you don't enjoy that 80%, then let's dissect that. Let's tear that all apart and figure out, what do you enjoy in business? What should you really be focusing on? But if you enjoy, most of that 80%, then allow that to be 80% of your time, and then allow 20% to be the new ideas, the experimenting, the shiny objects that you want to dive into. That way, whenever a new idea comes up in the middle of the day, you don't have to just dive down the rabbit hole. You can say, oh, okay, like I know I've got time blocked off on Friday to dive into this. What I personally like to do is if you're working a 5-day work week, then those 4 days out of the week are going to be your regular routine stuff. And then one day out of the week can be your CEO day. So on your CEO day, this is your day to work on the business, which is the right time and the right opportunities to look into those shiny objects because you're already working on the business. So you're already reminding yourself of certain goals, and you can look at these shiny objects in a strategic perspective and understand how do they connect back to the goals and other things that you want to achieve. So on your CEO days, you could be looking at your P&L and financial numbers. You could be looking at other KPIs like your lead gen and marketing KPIs and just really be checking in on where you're at on your goals. And then you can also look at, okay, what are the ideas? What are the shiny objects that you did not let yourself get distracted by earlier in the week that you can now dive into and spend some time experimenting? The other way you can approach this is to have just a 90-day experiment framework. So this is where you can allow yourself to experiment and change things up in how you're doing your messaging or some other project in your business and give it a full quarter. Give it 90 days to change something and then see what the results are. Because going back to the danger of shiny object syndrome, a lot of times it is that it's spreading you way too thin because you have way too many distractions. But the other danger here is that you're not letting yourself see the results of this new experimentation or this new shiny object. You're just doing it for a few weeks and then hopping over to something else, and you're not letting yourself see what the results would be. So if you give yourself a 90-day framework, that gives you enough time to still be strategic about whatever new thing you're experimenting with. Usually you'll see results of some kind of change in 1 to 2 quarters. So if you are a little bit impatient and you could just say, okay, I've got to make it 90 days. I've got to make it through quarter 1 with this project or with this change before I let myself get distracted with a new idea over here. So the objective here is to not change who you are. It's not to say, okay, never get distracted, just completely stay focused on the boring stuff, cut out all of that 20% of distractions. It's just to say, okay, how can I balance being creative? How can I balance these new ideas and wanting to experiment with being strategic and with being focused so that the business can still scale and be sustainable? So giving yourself frameworks and strategies and structure around these things can help ease that feeling to always be distracted because you know, okay, I can dive into this at this time. Here's the right time for me to go down the rabbit hole here. One of the ways that I also stay focused with this is through our chaos reducer guide. So we have a guide to help you reduce chaos. It's a 15-minute check-in with yourself once a week or every day chaos reducer guide so you can stay focused on what are those goals and objectives that you have and what are those things that maybe seemed urgent or seemed like a really good idea and you wanted it to be high priority but really should be a low priority that you can schedule for that CEO day or a different day. So if you want that guide, check the link in the comments for it. Otherwise, just remember, okay, these are the shiny objects. These are the things that I want to go experiment with. And here are the things that are maybe boring, but they are my scalable success plan. This is the 80% of the work that I know I'm going to keep on doing because it's what's bringing me in the profit. It's what's allowing the business to be sustainable. And then I'm going to give myself this other 20% of my time to focus on my new experiments and all the shiny objects.